Welcome back. And now that you have been introduced to your first comic playwright, Aristophanes, in the last two videos, we're now going to move into a series of three videos here regarding stage drama, its production, performance, and its origins in general. And I have up here a schematic of what an original ancient Greek theater would have looked like from the top, and we'll be talking about that in our second of the three videos. So the first thing to understand about stage drama is that this video, although it's talking specifically about ancient Greek comedy, also pertains to the other form of drama well known from ancient Greece, and that's, of course, ancient tragedy. Now, ancient tragedy is taught in a different URI course. It's CLA391, Greek Myth and Tragedy, which I also teach here online, so I hope that you'll subscribe. Nice shameless plug. But if you do, in fact, take Classic 397 with me or a different teacher, it'll be helpful for you to have this outline of stage drama because the principle of production of drama in an ancient Greek theater is very much the same for both comedy and tragedy. Most of the same principles apply to both. There are specific differences between the two genres, and of course here we're going to talk about the ones pertaining to comedy, but quite a bit of what you'll learn here in this video about stage drama in general will serve you well if you go on to take the Classic 397 the Greek tragedy course. Okay, so in these three videos, we're going to talk about three separate aspects of the ancient Greek drama. First of all, we're going to talk about its production. That will also tie in with the schematic up here, the theater. The second will be the way that it's actually performed on stage, specific restrictions about the way that the actual performance of the play happen. And then finally, we'll talk about the origins of tragedy as understood by the ancients and as connected with the god Dionysus. That's over here, but I will move for the third video so you can see all that. Okay, so let's begin with the production itself. The first thing to understand is that there were great differences between ancient Greek theater and modern stage production, the way that you might think of it. For instance, with a movie or Broadway show. If you have been to a cinema, for instance, or let's say a Broadway show, then you know that the studio where something is filmed or the actual place where you watch is generally closed in. Now, there are, of course, those old drive-in theaters that you might remember from many years ago or perhaps have seen. There's a few of them around, but a lot fewer than there used to be. That's actually a lot closer to what the ancient Greek theatrical experience is. But the main point of difference between ancient and modern theater, as you would probably understand it, is that theater is not closed in the ancient Greek world the way we think of it. In fact, the original first closed-in theater was not built, in fact, by the Greeks. It was not built until the days of the Romans, and it was built specifically by Pompey the Great in 55 BC. And in fact, prior to that, the Romans also did not have closed-in theaters. Instead, they had these temporary wooden stages that were built out in the middle of, say, a carnival or some other kind of amusement setup. And in fact, in the ancient Roman comedy, as we're going to talk about much later in the course when we get to Roman comedy, they had quite a bit of difficulty with distractions because there would be other performances like tightrope walkers and acrobats and such going on all around the dramatic production, and there was a tendency sometimes for the dramatic production to get interrupted by these other acts. So it wasn't quite as bad as that with the ancient Greeks, but there are some constraints that occur with this theater because of the way it's built. So okay, let's talk now specifically about the production of ancient Greek drama. The first point is that these dramas were performed during competitions. And these competitions would have happened at specific state-run festivals. Obviously, for the purpose of this class, we're talking about ancient Athens in particular, but there were other cities, such as, for instance, ones over on Sicily, like Syracuse as an example, that also did hold festivals with dramatic competitions, and we're aware that playwrights such as Aeschylus, the first and greatest dramatic playwright, traveled over to Sicily and did quite a few stage productions there. Another place that was very interested in drama was Macedonia, north of Greece proper. But since we have very little evidence surviving from any other location besides Athens, we have to rely on Athens as our paradigm for how ancient Greek drama was carried out. So Athens had two principal competitions during two major festivals during the year. One was called the City Dionysia Festival, as the name suggests, in honor of Dionysus, the god of theater and drama. The second was the Panathenaic Festival that was held in the middle of our summer, around July on our calendar. And again, as the name suggests, that's in honor of Athena, the patron goddess of Athens. Now, there is, however, a specific internal festival to which only Athenians were invited. These two were open to outsiders, foreigners coming in, but this third one, called the Lemnia Festival, was held around January in our calendar, and only Athenians attended this, not as foreigners, as in the case of these two. So these were all places where a comic playwright could perform, and in fact the Lemnia was specifically for comedy alone, not tragedy, as would have been the case with City Dionysia and Panathenea. Okay, so these are the three major competitions. Now, at these competitions, of course, there is quite a bit of a push, as in with practically all walks of life in the ancient Greek world, to win. Because you have three playwrights, usually, three playwrights, with either the tragic or the comic competitions, who were obliged to put on their plays. Now, the tragedians had it tough. They had to put on 4 plays all together for a competition. The comic playwrights got off much more easily. They only had to put on 1. But it better have been a good one, because one thing you cannot do in the ancient Greek world is lose. In the case of the comic production, there were probably 3 playwrights, although there is evidence to suggest that at certain times there might have also been as many as 5 playwrights, who put on a single play each. And after the plays were put on, a series of judges would use special stones, in Greek called psephos, the singular, that were used to denote the vote of the judge. They would drop the pebbles into urns in order to give the vote. And you will see a scene later on in Aristophanes' play Wasps that shows an example of a vote being cast by a stone into an urn. And it's that procedure that's used for voting for the winning play. And then after that, the votes are counted. Sometimes a certain number of urns only were taken out in order to avoid some type of bribery or corruption of the process. And then the winner was announced. If you won first place, you were very heartily congratulated. And if you won second place, you were very much despised. And forget about third place. And in fact, Aristophanes came in 3rd place with Clouds, this play that you're now in the process of reading. And he, the following year in Wasps, let his audience know exactly what he thought about coming in 3rd place. He was very definitely miffed by that outcome. So you're supposed to only win. The concept of that, by the way, in the ancient Greek world is pilonikia. Pilo is P-H-I-L-O, which is the liking or loving of something. And Nikia is actually the word for strife or competition, but you can hear in it, Nik, N-I-K, that's related to the Greek word for victory or winning, which is Nike, like in English, the goddess of victory who attended Athena on the Acropolis. You may know the winged victory statue in the Louvre in France. And then there's also, of course, Nike shoes, which are associated too with victory. So Nike is victory, but Nake, which is a similar word, is competition. So you can see that love of competition and love of victory seem to go hand in hand in the ancient Greek world. So it's only winning that counts. You can't come in second place. There's no silver medal in this kind of a competition. Okay, so this is the framework in which the Athenians operated as far as having a competition for the best playwrights. In order to be selected to perform in the competition in the first place, the playwright who carried out the name of Choragos, the chorus leader, who also was the leader of the chorus actually in the play itself, would have to be granted a chorus. That was the phrase, granted a chorus by the state. And there was a special committee that would decide that. And then, if the playwright was granted the chorus to compete in the next competition, then he would be able to go forward and put on his play at the next competition. So only certain playwrights were eligible to do this. Aristophanes was one of them, and we know of other names such as Eupolis, for instance, that were fairly common. But as we talked about with the Aristophanes videos, unfortunately, only Aristophanes' old comedy plays survive. So that's all we can go on in order to know what these plays were like and what kind of productions were put on in these competitions. Okay, so that takes care of production, and in our next video we're going to talk about performance, and I will also discuss the schematic up here for the actual layout of the comedy and tragedy drama. Okay, we'll see you very shortly in the next video.